right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Jammin and Plannin Podcast. My name is Johnny Guitar Morgan, and I am the founder and managing member at Connected Consultants, your strategic growth advantage. My super talented co-host, Scotty Kick Drum Stathis, and I are super excited to be back after a short hiatus. Scotty is the founder and managing partner at Stathis Partners, LLC, an executive resources firm in the bank and credit union brokerage channel. Also, the drummer in a real life rock and roll band called Just One Sip. How's it going today, Scotty?
It's going awesome, and we have an awesome guest. I'm excited about this show.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really good to see Mary. It's always fun to hang out with her. So let's get right into it. Today, we are super excited to introduce you all to my good friend and regulatory expert, Mary Mozart Kopczynski. Mary is the CEO of Regalytics, the global supply chain of governance and regulatory data. Regalytics has curated over 5 million alerts from over 8,000 governing bodies worldwide. Mary is the co-founder of Women in RegTech New York. She was named 2023 RegTech Professional of the Year, as well as the Fintech Inspiring Founder Award, where her profile was highlighted on the New York Stock Exchange trading floor. But what really makes Mary so special is her incredibly warm personality, great sense of humor, and her never give up attitude. Her weekly recap of regulatory alerts videos have become must watch TV, especially when she plays dress up from time to time. She has the unique ability to make regulatory alerts super interesting and fun. So let's give Mary a warm Jammin and Plannin welcome to the show. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I sound so cool. I gotta.
You are so cool.
That's it, because you are.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mary, first question. How did your musical journey begin? I know you were one of, I believe, 8 kids.
8 of 9 kids. And so that was the name of my first company, was 8 of 9 Consulting. And my musical journey began with my older brothers and sisters. And later you'll see in my performance that I'm going to play one of the songs. The first song I ever learned, they taught me by making me memorize which keys to hit in what order. And I decided to play it in the second grade talent show where my future piano teacher saw me. And this is like a weird fact, but I was a serious thumb sucker. Like I sucked my thumb and I had terrible buck teeth and I was very, very awkward. And braces were supposed to take 2 years, but mine took 4 years because I was secretly sucking my thumb all the way, I'm not kidding, until freshman year of high school. Okay. So this is like a dirty secret I never told anybody. But the backstory is that in second grade, uh, I was going to get my braces on, and my dentist said to me, Mary, you have to stop, or your orthodontist, whatever he said, you have to stop sucking your thumb. And I didn't want to. So we tried everything. And finally, my mom said, I will buy you whatever you want if you stop sucking your thumb. And so for approximately 3 weeks, I fooled everybody into believing that I didn't suck my thumb anymore. And my mom said, okay, what do you want? Thinking it was going to be a toy. But what did I say? I said piano lessons. And I doomed my mother to a lifetime all the way through high school. Every week, I took piano lessons from Mrs. Betzler. And I, at my heyday, was very good. I played Mozart, I played Brahms, I played Chopin. Excellent. But then at a certain point, I'm a shadow of what I used to be. And so when I play, it's not quite at the concert performance I used to be at. But it's fun.
Well, that's great. Well, now we know you play piano, so that answers my next question. What are your favorite bands? Like, what type of music do you listen to? What genre?
Yeah, so it's what I didn't realize is I don't actually, I hope no one hears this, but like my piano teacher, because I'm sure I'm going to let her watch this, but I don't like piano. Like I hate listening to piano. And maybe it's just because I played piano as a kid, like it just torments me. But like when people want to play George Winston or something like that, I'm like, what a terrible instrument. I really wish I had learned the violin or like the fiddle or even the banjo would be more fun. And I did learn a little bit of guitar, but in terms of music, I'm a diehard U2 fan. like over the top in a creepy way, obsessed with U2 and Bono. And at a certain point, I think I was 27 years old and I filed my first company and I had graduated and I had a law degree and a PhD and I was the CEO of a company and I was like, well, what do I do now? So I made it a life goal that I want Bono to want to meet me, but I don't think I'll ever reach it. But at least I'll have a lifetime of trying, you know?
It's a good goal. Have you seen you two in the Sphere in Las Vegas?
I was there opening night because it was my birthday. So yes, and I say I am a diehard fan. I really am. There was actually one year, it was my wedding anniversary, and my husband woke me up in the morning, which is unusual because he's like a sleeper, right? He's like, he's Mr. I will stay up till 4 in the morning and sleep until noon. And so the fact that he was waking me up on a Saturday morning was really weird. And I was like, what? He's like, I'm going to open your present. And I open it and it's earrings, but at the bottom are 2 tickets. And I open it, I'm like, what? Crow Park? And he's like, yeah, we got to get to the airport right now. And he bought me tickets to U2 to see them in Dublin. And we got
Oh, wow.
playing like a couple hours later. So that was one of my best anniversary presents ever. Yeah,
Wow, seeing them in Ireland, that's awesome.
it is. Yeah, they, the Irish know how to experience U2. We were really weirded out because nobody was in the stadium at all. I mean, it was an empty stadium, and here, Red and I, we'd, like, gotten there at 7 AM to be in the line with the weird groupies, so we're, like, right at the banner, but and not a seat was full until finally U2 comes out, and then every Irish person, like, returns from the bar, like, and they're all there in the bands, like,
That's
and it's
protocol.
Protocol, yeah.
Yeah, that's Irish protocol.
Well, the Ireland is awesome. It's just so fun, and everybody's always singing or playing an instrument. Or all right, so I have three really quick questions for you. One is your middle name really Mozart? Two, do you also sing? And three, have you ever played in a band?
Oh my goodness. No, no, and no. So my middle name is actually I it's Helen Nuxall, which was my maiden name, and that's because my husband and I we met in high school when we were 14 years old, and
Wow.
he it wasn't till we 10 years later we were actually getting married, and he said on the night of our wedding, he's like, you know, 2 things, you're saying our last name wrong, but also I don't know who Mary Kopczynski is. I've been in love with Mary Nuxall my whole life, so what are we gonna do? And so he decided that he would take my last name as his second middle name. So he's Jeffrey Allen Nuxall Kopczynski, and I'm Mary Helen Nuxall Kopczynski. So that's our real middle names. And then we named our kid Amir Patrick Nuxall Kopczynski. But we're the Kopczynskis. I don't know. It was that way we both gained something. Second question, am I in a band? What was it?
No, you also sing.
I never in public unless I'm drunk at karaoke.
Oh,
I was in the choir a bunch in high school, but always as like the weird background person, never like out there singing. Probably best for everybody. Um, and then in terms of being in a band, I you can't really be in a band when the only thing you play is like Chopin or Mozart. And so it always was like one of my sad things of life is I was never good at just playing the piano, right? You know, where you just like fill in background music. Whereas like when I play guitar, I can like strum and it's like chill and you can make it sound good. And I cannot do that with piano. I am I can only play like the technical official piano.
oh,
Yeah.
so you've never played like U2 a song on piano or anything like that?
Well, that's not true. I did reverse engineer a couple of U2 songs on my own. One of them is October. I don't know if you're a big U2 song, but that's one of the very few straight piano songs by U2. And I did figure out how to play that and sing, but it was definitely something I only did if no one was around.
All right, well, we're gonna need a secret recording of that.
I know. When you do see my clip, you will see I also can play certain things like upside down on the piano. So I did like set it up. You can see that I can do weird. It's not really a performance as much as it is like a showcase of stupid human tricks.
Oh, man. Love it. Can't wait.
Yes, you know, our next question is, you know, some of your funniest, best stories that you can legally share from your musical journey. Little did I know that all of your answers were gonna be funny stories. So, expand. Tell us some of your other funniest stories that you can share legally.
Wait, my God, weird stories. The one I can always think of is that I really wanted to play this one Chopin song. And this was like, you have to understand, like, I do have a law degree and a PhD. I'm a type A, I'm a go getter. I'm a, follow the rules, study the text, do what you're supposed to do kind of person. And I felt like I could do everything all the time really well. And so I'm really attracted to things that are hard. Like, if I'm very bad at something, I seemingly love it because it's where I am growing. And piano was one of those things that it was just extremely hard for me to learn it, but I put in the time and the effort, but I was never that good. But I never really realized it until I think it was about senior year that my piano teacher, who had been with me from second grade all the way till senior year, and I said, I really like this song, and this other girl at my high school can play it, and I want to play it. And she looked at me and she was like, Mary, it's time to have a talk. And she basically was like, you're not going to be a concert pianist, okay? Like, you've gone as far as you're gonna go. You're trying really hard, but you're really busy and you're really talented at all these other things you do, and I feel like maybe it's okay to let it go. And that was the first time I ever had permission, to let something come off my plate. And it was really, for me, I mean, I'm supposed to tell a funny story, but for me, that was like a really important thing because that's when I started realizing this other girl at my school, like, she was different than I was. She really knew how to play the piano and she could do anything faster, better, bigger, and more amazing. And I was still in touch with her too. So piano is something for me that's like a private, um, whenever I play, it's me remembering who I am to my core as a person and not my, persona to other people. So it's like a spiritual thing, you do it alone. It's I think that's why I was never in a band either because I do have one really embarrassing story though.
Go for it.
Also terrible. I know this whole podcast is me telling you that I'm terrible at piano and then I'll play for you and you'll be like, I see what she's saying. But I cannot sight read to save my life. Okay. So sight reading is when someone puts a bunch of like, the whatever, the technical paper in front of you and you're supposed to just be able to play it without hearing it or knowing what the song looks like and just, doing the math in your head of when the notes hit. And I cannot do it. And no matter how many times I practiced or worked on it, I am terrible at sight reading. Uh, so anyway, the teachers of my high school asked me if I would play for their holiday parties so they could do a sing along. And I was like, no, no, like, not gonna do it. Definitely not gonna do it. Don't have time. I would need to prepare like 25 songs. It'll take me like 3.5 months to like memorize them. And somehow, some way, they persuaded me to do it. And it was probably the most humiliating experience of my entire life because I was like, "Eh, eh, 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 ooh, ooh." Like, jingle bells. And it was just horrifying. So, anyway, that's why I'm on Jammin and Plannin to talk about, you can love something and be really bad at it and do it anyway and get what you can out of it. And that's part of the fun of music, right?
Well, and that's our next question, right? So music touches the soul, it can, right? But like, so you alluded to that already. It's something you do on your own, and it's almost meditative or whatever. So how does music play a positive role in your life? How does it touch your soul, or what do you get out of it?
Well, I think I have to say with motherhood, I have a 7-year-old boy. You suddenly realize like other things are more important than you. Like, you've got to get his lunch made. You got to get him out the door. You got to get on your work calls. You got to help your employees. You got to help your customers. You got to do what you got to do. You got to make sure you get that thing done, that you don't really have much time for yourself. Right. And so for me, playing the piano is like going to the spa or going to a yoga class. Right. It is a completely self-indulgent activity that, you only do it if you are free from other people, you don't need to entertain anyone, and you can just enjoy doing something. And so that's what it is for me. I wish I still to this day, I wish I could make music more social. And that's like on my to-do list is like before I die, I'm going to learn the fiddle because I want to be able to like have music be part of the fun and the party. And I'm hoping a different instrument might be better, but like it's not a super party to sit down and play Mozart, like that's just everyone falls silent and awkward and feels like they have to watch you. And so I've always like wished I could play more social instruments.
That's so funny. That's so true too. And it's funny, I tell people I started a book, How to Sing Without Thinking, right? And it's similar what you're talking about. You need a safe space, right? And it needs to be about you. And so it's great. My wife goes to bed, and once the door is closed and her little humidifier is on, I can scream as loud as I want in the living room and she hears nothing. So it's completely safe, and that's where I have my most fun. So thanks for sharing that story. All right, let's switch gears and let's get into your work background. So tell us, about how your financial services journey began from beginning to the launch of Regalytics.
Oh my goodness. Well, I will say that I was a nonprofit fundraiser for 10 years. So I was raising money for starving children around the world. And at a certain point, I decided that I didn't want to beg for money for a living. I wanted to learn how it worked. And so I moved across the country with my husband and I went to Rutgers and I got this law degree and this PhD. And I applied to 300 nonprofit jobs and I got rejected by all of them. And they were basically the same thing like, what are you doing? Like, if you want to be a fundraiser, great. But if you want to be a lawyer professor, like, what are you doing? So I basically had committed career suicide. And so a very sad Mary took an internship at an investment bank, and not just any investment bank, but I'll tell you in a second which one it is. But I was assigned to the area of CDOs and fixed income derivatives in the summer of 2007 at Credit Suisse, which means I was assigned to the heart of the financial crisis in the middle of the financial crisis. And the irony is, I didn't know anything about finance. I hadn't taken econ. I didn't know anything. And so I had this very Pollyanna view, and I felt like I was making out like a bandit because I was making $30 an hour, which was way more than I ever made as a nonprofit fundraiser. Meanwhile, everyone around me was clearly freaking out because they were losing, right? Something where I was like, what's up, guys? Like, anyone hear any good jokes lately? But what ultimately happened is I was talking to the lawyer and I said, yeah, I'm a legal intern. Can you tell me what's going on? She said, oh, no, no, no. The credit officer's in charge. So I went to the credit officer, which at the time I didn't know what a credit officer did. And I was like, tell me what you do. And I don't know. I understand you're in charge. And the credit officer said, no, no, no. The project manager's in charge. So I went to the project manager, who, of course, said the lawyer was in charge. And that's when Leader Mary stepped in, where I got on the phone and I said, okay, I am an intern. I don't know anything, but I'm going to just kind of restate what I understand. And I'd like you guys to correct me if I'm wrong. I said, it sounds like we're going to lose a lot of money. And the credit officer said, no, we're not. And the lawyer said, yes, we are. And that was the first time everybody started understanding what was going on with, at the time, Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and what could potentially happen at Credit Suisse. And so out of that, I ended up building a consulting firm. At our peak, we had 30 people running around doing crisis management on Wall Street. And how we got to Regalytics is a very large French bank came to us and said, hey, we have a bunch of human beings that are going to each of the regulators' websites and typing any changes in Microsoft Excel. Can you just get it in Excel? And I actually hung up the phone and rolled my eyes. And I thought, really? Like $1 trillion massive bank wants something in Microsoft Excel this day and age? It's 2018, for goodness sakes. Anyway, thankfully, my co-founder had the good sense to mock up this Excel spreadsheet and they loved it. And so the first iteration of our product was that. It was an email with an Excel spreadsheet that had any change from the 545 financial and insurance regulators. And we got a couple customers, and I said, hot damn, we've got a RegTech product. So I sold the consulting business. Thank goodness. Little did I know one of my biggest customers was going to go down soon, but we built out this product and then the pandemic hit. And the way that impacted us is that the CDC suddenly started passing rules that impacted Wall Street, right? The eviction moratorium, safety for bank tellers. But we couldn't flood an Excel spreadsheet with 2,000 alerts a day from the CDC in the middle of the pandemic. So we had to find a technological way to carve it out. And this is right on the birth of artificial intelligence. We were using GPT back in 2021 when it actually was not very good. But once we did that, we could put anything we wanted in the pipe. So I could put in all the 50 state governors. And if they talked about the prize pig at the festival, it wouldn't go through. But if they were talking about interest rates or mortgages, it would. And then we started getting non-financial requests. So Nationwide wanted a solution for pet insurance, and Toyota wanted a solution for electric vehicle charging station regulations. And that's where we kind of came to the conclusion that somebody had to do the hard work of just gathering the global supply chain of the world's regulatory alerts into one place and let other people build stuff with it. And it's been an amazing journey. And we're now like on the cutting edge of agentic AI solutions inside some of the biggest hedge funds and financial institutions, major corporations. And it's been an amazing experience at the right time. Wasn't easy, but
That's a cool story, and it's a great example of how sometimes some things happen that give you the pathway to organically grow a business from a spreadsheet to a legit business, right?
yeah.
And that when it happens naturally like that, and I say naturally, you have to have intelligence behind the scenes to say, well, here's the next opportunity, and here's where we can go from here, right? And just build it out and scale it, because that's the one of the most difficult things to do in a business is scale a business, right? And scale it properly. And it sounds like you identified all those mile markers along the way that would be the right direction to go, and it increase the capacity of the business amount. It sounds like you can handle the regulations from a variety of industries, and you had an engine on the scenes, right? So all right. So here's my question for you related to that. So give us a feel for the impact that Regalytics has had on the financial services industry, and if you were to define a perfect profile of your users or a perfect prospect profile, maybe even where you go next, what does that look like? And then give us a little bit more detail about AI, how you're using AI, and how you may be differentiated from competitors, and just those institutions that want to just use AI period without a formal you know product wrapped around AI.
Yeah. Well, no matter what, we need quality data. The world needs quality data. And I think that's one of the biggest things I learned during crisis management on Wall Street when, blockchain was the hot technology coming out. But it's if you're performing tasks on something that's actually in the floor of Ed's office in paper, it's not going to do any good. And that was like, I think the first wave of all of this was just recognizing that we needed to digitize the information, right? And the banks themselves needed to digitize their own customer information, their own legal documents, their own systems. But then there's this whole process of the regulators that are producing some sort of new change, and they're doing it in their way that's completely different from another regulator's way, right? And so once we realize like somebody needs to bring this together and normalize it, um, at the time, I thought we were going to be a compliance tool for banks. And I learned a couple lessons just by customers. And that's probably the biggest lessons I learned is to listen and try it out and get the product in their face and get their feedback and hear no. I mean, all I hear is no all the time. And then eventually you hear, yes, you got it. But I had one woman that said, I love this Excel spreadsheet from all the 545 financial insurance regulators, but I kind of like, is there a way you could shrink it so that only if it has something to do with annuities or life insurance, but not any life insurance, just life insurance if it's a financial, blah, 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 blah. And so I did it for her and I handed it to her and she said, yeah, this is good. But then I miss all those interesting blockchain alerts. And that's when I came to the realization that nobody actually knows what they want and what they want is going to change, right? Because you think about it, yesterday it was LIBOR. That's all anybody talked about it. Then it was ESG, right? And now those are gone. Now all we talk about are tariffs. And that's part of where I came to this conclusion that we needed to get it all. And so we actually came out, we follow the 3 Cs. That's what I called it, the 3 Cs. The first C is the most comprehensive because you don't know what you want. And to be honest, a new regulator is born every day, right? Texas created the Artificial Intelligence Department of Texas or whatever it is that is issuing rules for you following artificial intelligence rules if you're a Texas entity, right? These things are coming out constantly. But the second C is coherence, right? Because if you say, okay, I want to know about privacy in Germany, having to do with hospital and healthcare privacy and patient privacy, that's incredibly different than software and data privacy in California, right? And so the second C was us just building tons of flags and tags and capabilities around shrinking the data so that you could direct it to the audience that wanted to receive it. But the third C we started realizing was customizability, which is all about how do you want to get it? Like in what format? Because we originally, people want it in the format of Excel. And to this day, a pretty large portion of our customer just want it in Excel. Like it blows my mind, but I get it because I'm like kind of an Excel junkie. But some people want it in the form of a video. Some people want it in the form of a chatbot where it's an on-demand, like I just want to ask a question, it tells me the answer. And so as AI has evolved and, reduction of hallucinations and the ability to prioritize certain data sets over others, I can now ask my chatbot, how do I import honey into South Korea? And it will tell me the steps I have to do. You have to register with this agency. You need to get it certified with that agency. You need to file this paperwork. And it's like magic. And it'll show you the exact regulatory authority where that came from, which is in South Korea and South Korean law books. But when we're working with like a large financial customer, we have to lock it down, right? So like maybe this hedge fund has a broker dealer that's registered in uh, New York, California, and Alabama, whereas this RIA is registered in this jurisdiction and they're selling these kind of products so that when they ask their chatbot, how do I import honey into South Korea? It's going to say, I'm sorry, you don't have, your company doesn't have a license to do that. And here's your internal private policy that tells you can't do it. Here's the law. Here's somebody who got in trouble recently for doing it. And also here's a private legal opinion you bought, right? So the use cases are mind blowing. And I think the most shocking to me was when I was talking to a doctor and they wanted to use Regalytics to get the latest diabetes research. And I thought, okay, I might be able to do this for Wall Street where I know what I'm talking about and I could kind of, pretend I know everything when it's hard to know everything just in financial services, but I cannot do this for pharma. And so that's where we realized we should really sell to the compliance software companies, right? Because they're the ones that are using the data and then turning it into the actionable solution for the end user. So we have certain partners we work with that are targeting financial services, but completely different partners that we work with that are doing, for example, quality, safety, and health, right?
So they're using your technological infrastructure to pump in different types of data for different industries.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the way those partnerships work.
Yeah. And it's the a lot of times you have investors that are like, you've tackled too much. I'm like, no, I just tackled one thing, and it's understanding a regulator, its promulgation process, and getting it in apples to apples format. That's all I'm good at doing. Right. The next layer of which rule applies to what and how the end customer wants to receive it, there's tons of companies that want that. And what they don't want is they don't want to go and scrape every Mexican regulatory authority in the world and translate it into understandable English. But I do. So why don't I just do what I'm good at and then let everybody else do what they're good at, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, let me ask you just one more layer question, pass it back to John. And that is, I've talked to regulators, not a lot, but I have because I'm in the same industry, right? So let's keep this to financial services. One of the frustrations, and a regulator I talked to fairly recently admitted this, is that you have regulators regulating things that they really don't know much about. So the regulations that come out sometimes need to be pushed back on in intelligent ways. Do you run into that ever, or what are your thoughts in that regard? How do you manage that?
I will say we're in a really interesting time right now because we have this sort of shrinking US federal regime. And I think it's actually quite positive because having been inside the banks during that heyday, when you're building technology with a gun to your head to meet requirements of somebody that doesn't understand your business, you're building it for the purposes of nothing that matters to your business, right?
Right.
And what is amazing, and I actually just had this confirmed. I was talking to some people recently at large institutions, and I said, so what's going on with all the maybe the MRAs, matters requiring attention, where maybe you guys got in trouble in 2018, 2019, you're still working at it. Like, are they just retracting? And they're like, yeah, basically, if you call the right person, you're like, do we have to do this? The agencies are like, nah. And so all of a sudden, I feel like collectively, the US financial services industry, I mean, look, those that are still dealing with Europe and other jurisdictions, they still need to be on their toes anyway. Or they're dealing with state regulators, right? Because now the states need to make money. So states are ratcheting up. But there's like a collective breath of fresh air. And it's coinciding with this revelation of artificial intelligence and like actual humans using GPT and being surprised at how good it is, but understanding where it fails. Um, is that everybody's like, okay, I built this, AML KYC anti-fraud system because I had to for FinCEN in this emergency. And I spent $100 million with, Ernst and Young and all these people and these technologists. But now what do I really want to do? Like, what is actually the right thing to do so that I'm actually just understanding who the customer is. And so you add that plus the fact that us vendors, it's getting easier and easier for subject matter experts to develop things, uh, that it's actually really putting domain experts in a better position because they can produce their domain expertise now. Whereas before, there was this whole disconnect between the tech people who didn't understand what they were doing and the subject matter experts that had no idea what tech was doing. That now it's merged, and the solutions are vastly superior now, much much better than they were even 5 years ago. And so I'm actually really excited to watch this transformation. There's going to be losers, some of these amazing SaaS companies that were 10 years ago on top of the world are going to be disintermediated very quickly. But I'm really excited just for the experience, right? If you think about it, even as a compliance officer, you don't know everything, right? And to have this weight on your shoulders that you're responsible for every regulation in the world to make sure your advisors don't get in trouble, like how unrealistic is that? Whereas now they can just say, "Oh, can I do this?" And they could ask a question about something in Singapore and just get the answer. And it doesn't cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire a law firm in Singapore to do all this research. They can just kind of get the gist and be more strategic about how they advise their clients and their advisors. So it's going to be a bright future. I can see that.
That's cool. That's exciting. That's great to hear because it has been an issue. The variety of things we just talk about, right, are issues. So well, John, I think she just answered our next question. So why don't you wrap it up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right
Perfect.
on time. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other part that I think you didn't touch on is, one of the other cool parts of your tech is that you're able to use the data and present it to others, right? So I know you get embedded into other technologies, but also you can use the data to make graphs and newsletters and keep, what's going on today type of information for anybody that would need it within your organization. So I think that's an important dimension as well. But um, last question. What is one thing that your work colleagues would be surprised to learn about you other than everything else you shared today?
I think they honestly, nobody knows I play the piano. That is one of the things I never talk about to people. I never that's not a thing I put on my resume. It's something that I just keep. So I think just generally that I play the piano is very surprising. Other than that, you already got the diehard U2 fan. I also don't always tell people that. Uh,
Hey, Mary, I have a question for you. We talked about rodeos before we started recording. Did you ever ride a sheep when you were little?
I never rode a sheep when I was little, but I did do horseback riding at a camp every year, and I did like horses. I did. I will tell you one thing. I was really in love with playing with Barbies as a kid. I thought Barbie was amazing. And it's really funny because my sister and I would both play Barbies, and I would play the piano and have my little sister walk Barbie and Ken down the aisle. And I was very much, we have this whole thing. But whenever I played Barbie, it was always Barbie had some unbelievable, amazing career where she was like an astronaut and had to save the world. And Ken was kind of there as her helper. And then the final thing is she fell in love with Ken. And maybe sometimes they had a kid, but no, my sister was like, here's Ken, here's Barbie, kiss, kiss, kiss. And then they'd have a baby. And then that was her whole playing, was like being a family. So I was not expecting to have a kid, and we did it at the very last minute, age 40, both of us. And it's been really fun and surprising, as with all parents. But I always remember that I always wanted to work. I just love it. I love fixing problems. And if you ask me, what would you do for free if money was no object? I do know the answer to that. I would build a regulatory alert tool and commit my life to shepherding the future of artificial intelligence at all costs. So I'm excited to finally be on the other side of that startup phase, where we actually can uh, leverage and grow in proper ways financially with our customers. So it's exciting to be on this side of the startup journey.
Absolutely. Well, good for you. Well, congratulations on all of your adventures and your success and all the fun you're having along the way on fulfilling your passion. And your Barbie play was serious foreshadowing, it seems like.
I wanted to work. It's so weird. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this was just as fun as I thought it would be, probably even more so. Thank you for joining us today, Mary. And also thank you all out there that are watching. We really appreciate you guys following along. And with that said, we want to make sure that you don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can watch the show on any of the major podcast applications. Um, and then also, most importantly, stay tuned, because right after we're done here, you're going to hear Mary's debut on the piano, which I can't wait to see and I haven't seen yet. So I'm super excited for that. And in the meantime, we want to make sure that you keep on jamming.
And planning.
All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks for joining us, Mary.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mary. Thanks for sharing all your passions and your fun and your great personality. It was a great time. Thank you.
Well, hello. I'm Mary Kopczynski, and this is my piano that I very rarely play, but I have been practicing lately. And I would like to point out that this is my RegTech Professional of the Year award, which I really, really like, from A-Team. And so, big fan. definitely keep it where I can see it. And I'm just gonna lean you here against my cocktail because I don't often play in front of people, and I'm gonna need a cocktail to do it. And so the first song I'm gonna play for you is a song called The Irish Wedding Dance. It goes like this. And so that song was from my childhood. And see, anytime I played a song, Mrs. Betzler would give me a sticker. And that was really cool. And so that's one of my favorites. But what you really need to understand about being a proper pianist is that you have to do these things called scales. And scales are very boring, but they're extremely important because they're exercising the muscles in your hands and helping you so your left hand plays the exact same cadence as your right hand, and they sound like this. You get the idea, right? But the whole point is you exercise your hands so that you can play things like Mozart Sonata in C major, which sounds like this. And I'm going to warn you now, the minute I make a mistake, I'm going to stop playing because I will make a mistake because my hands are not warmed up. But I'll go as far as I can. Yeah, see? And that's where I end. It goes on, and it's very fast. And this is the story of my life. I can always play the first 5 seconds of every song that I used to be able to play. But this last one, I just want to tell you, my brothers and sisters actually taught me this song by doing exactly this, which is what I've done recently for my 7-year-old to teach him Heart and Soul. So this one I memorized, and I could and might still be able to play it with my eyes closed. So I'm going to try right now. I peaked at the very last one, but it's not easy to do. You can see why you have to practice a lot. But the last one I'm going to show you is, Heart and Soul. You know the song, right? Anyway, this is the kid trick that I used to do all the time that I apparently can still do, but I haven't done it in years. Hold on just a second, because I got to get under the piano. Yep. Okay. And there you go, the talents that no one knows that Mary Kopczynski has.
We want to thank you all for joining us today.
And we hope you had as much fun tuning in as we did putting it all together.
Don't forget to check out the links below to hear what we are all working on musically.
And hey, while we always have amazing guests lined up for our episodes, please let us know if you would like to be a guest or if you know somebody who should be.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast series today.
And until next time,
Keep on jamming.
and keep on planning.